Hey everybody, it's Stephanie Boozer with CUGC HQ. Happy to welcome you to today's webinar with Liquidware. Going to be talking about FlexApp and everything that it can do to help you out. But before we get into that, I have just a couple of announcements for you. As you know, or hopefully you know, we are still doing all of our local group meetings. They are all online, but they are also happening. So today, October 7th, we've had a lot of them. Ireland, I think, just wrapped up, but later on today, New Mexico and Phoenix and Portland are going. And then we've just got more on the schedule. Also, just a reminder that we have 2 of our Excel events coming up, and Liquidware will be at both of those events. So Southeast Excel is next week, and then coming up in November is our Southwest Excel. And if you haven't been to one of our Excel events, either in person or online, they are expanded CUGC meetings. So we have multiple technical sessions happening throughout the day. All of our sponsors are there. We have awesome keynote sessions. I think next week we have Maria Konnikova. She's a champion poker player and an award-winning author, and I'm sure she's going to tell us something amazing about things you need to know to play poker. No, I don't know. I think it's going to be a really great keynote. So I'm looking forward to it. So definitely check those out on our events calendar. And just as a reminder, if you've missed any of our webinars, you can always log into your CUGC account and go back and find any of them. They go back to 2015. We have a full library of recordings for you, and this one will be in the same spot tomorrow. So just once you log in, that Files tab will be there on the navigation menu. It doesn't show up until you log in, and then you just hit Webinar Recordings, and then you'll be off and running. You'll have everything at your fingertips. All right, and as I mentioned, the recordings, we are recording today's presentation, so you will receive a link to that from GoToWebinar. So be on the lookout for that. It'll come tomorrow afternoon. And again, you can always find it on our website. Also, we'd like you to submit your questions today. Submit them as you have them. We'll try to get to them. We may get to them during the presentation and we may get to them at the end. We'll just see how it goes and what your question is, but I do want you to ask them as you have them so you don't forget. And finally, at the end, I'll throw a link in the chat to a survey. It's short and anonymous and for CUGC use only. All right, with us today, keeping an eye on all your questions, is Jake Walsh. He is a CTA based in the UK. Jake, you want to say hello?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Stephanie. Pleasure to be here as always. Yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on the questions, asking those and answering as best as I can, and then asking some others to the guys presenting today.
Thanks, Jake. And from Liquidware, we have Jason E. Smith and Jack Smith, I believe no relation. They'll be going through everything with us today. And I think if any of you have been on our Liquidware webinars before, you've seen these guys. They always put on a great show. I'm sure we'll have a great time with them today. So I'm going to hand things over to them right now. I believe, Jason, I need to send you the screen.
Yep. Thanks.
All right, here it comes.
We'll get it switched over. We're so glad to be doing this CUGC. Let me just share out a couple things. Should see that.
Yep, I see it.
Thanks. It looks like we've got good attendance, great attendance today. And I know people get tired of webinars, but we keep things interactive whenever Jack and I are speaking. And I know Jake's going to help us do the same thing. And we take questions throughout, and just feel free to put those in the chat window, and we'll take those at any time. And we'll pause and come up for air a couple times and see if there's any questions around. We already made our quick introductions. There's our headshots again, but I lead product marketing over here, but still with a bit of a technical hat. And Jack Smith is senior solutions architect, so he is on the firing line. He's out there on the front lines, and implementing our solutions in all sorts of virtual desktop and workspace environments and physical environments as well, and many of those are Citrix environments. A little bit about Liquidware before we get started, and we'll concentrate on what we're talking about today, and that's simplifying base image management through layering. Our suite is an adaptive workspace management suite, and it's the only place that you'll find this in the industry, to where it is a suite that is user management, application management, and UX management that goes across. So here's the question: how are we different than what Citrix offers for the tools area that we overlap? Our solutions go across every type of desktop, virtual, all types, cloud, and physical. So a lot of times it makes it easier when you have decided to transform your desktops into more Citrix desktops. If they're already under management with our adaptive workspace suite, you can simply give them a new shortcut on the desktop, the Citrix receiver, and they can launch their desktop session. And as long as they are hitting the same AD infrastructure, everything that's needed to pull across their user environment management, their layering, and to know their UX, their user experience between different types of Windows environments, not just Citrix, is going to be there. And so you're not siloed in having one user management solution for this type of environment or another type of environment, and then for your physical environment, your user environment flows and follows the users, as well as your applications will as well, no matter what Windows desktop or operating system that they're on. So there are big differences there. And then you can always know before and after user experience scores, so you know that the desktop that you've given them is the best desktop that they've had to date. If not, we'll help you troubleshoot that through the metrics that Stratosphere provides to give you that data. So again, adaptive workspace management, helping you adapt. Migrations are a thing of the past when you have us in place. The user's never down because we store everything in Citrix Cloud, Azure, or in any of the other clouds, or on with a file share. We can do that as well for their user environment management, application layering as well. Those follow you because they're available anywhere. They're accessible, and we have object-based storage even for application layers if you wish. And those can be pulled down from cloud instead of just a file share that is local to a network. So that is what we mean by adaptive workspace management, and that's the market that Liquidware is in. If those other solutions are of use to you, we would be glad to share with you anything about that, and you can find that on our website. Today, we're going to talk about application layering. We will touch upon the user environment management because to us, our architecture is similar in there, and we will show you how the two solutions are tightly used together. Now, the question that comes up most frequently is, how is FlexApp application layering different than Citrix app layering? And why would you guys be a Citrix ready partner in here when I may have access to Citrix app layering? We'll address that square on in just a few slides from here. But let's tell you exactly what FlexApp is first before we get started, because it is different, a little bit different than Citrix app layering. It focuses on application delivery, just the applications. So it's not made for patch management or updating the OS or the true OS-based image. It is focused on application layering and keeping the applications dynamic or elastic, if you will. The application is meant from day one to work across operating system versions and different ways that you deliver Windows, whether it's physical, virtual, or cloud. For physical, it should be a well-managed and well-attached physical desktop for it to run. Unique things in our solutions, such as applications on demand with click to layer. The application's not layered unless you click on it. If you've delivered it as an option, we have 3 different ways to deliver an application to a desktop. We'll touch on those too. We support remote and work from home strategies by supporting any type of desktop, especially those like Citrix, that makes it dynamic and easy to burst scale into those types of environments when you're adding users for work from home strategies. FlexApp applications only need to be packaged one time, and then they'll work across operating system version. There's no need to repackage apps. It's very easy and fast to package an app, and that's where we have some very much and very frankly some differences between Citrix app layering, is that once you package an app, and it's very quick to do so, that app will go across different versions. Now, as I've said, there's occasions to use Citrix app layering and FlexApp together, or there's the use case, and it'll become more apparent as we discuss FlexApp today on when you would do that. We have innovative technology like FlexApp Cache, which will cache parts of the application down to the endpoint, so you don't have to worry about connections to the network. So more and more that application comes down, and if you had an interruption in the network, your application experience goes uninterrupted. We enable multi-cloud staging, so we fully support Microsoft Azure and Citrix Cloud, but also support other clouds as well for failover. So keep that in mind. Looks like early on we might already be getting a question. Do you see any, Jake, or am I just seeing?
Yeah, it's a good one here. Is this something that works with MCS images?
Yes.
Brilliant. And what about, for example, a VDIS that would be used in Citrix provisioning services?
If we're talking about a personal vDisk?
I think in this context around, so for example, it says Citrix base image, so I think like a traditional OS image in PBS.
Yeah, works perfectly fine there too. For the caching mechanism, we can actually choose where that goes. So you're not limited to sticking it into the C drive, which would then fill up the cache, the disk cache or the RAM cache. So yeah, it works perfectly fine with PVS, MCS environments. No issues there.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys.
I think I need to share out my screen a little differently so I don't keep getting hiccups here. Just to apologize, just wait just a second, and I'll share it out as a clean screen and not have to worry about anything popping up. There we go. There's a way to do that in GoToWebinar that makes it easier, and I apologize for not doing that in the first place. So that's FlexApp. Thank you for the questions as we went along. The architecture is also very straightforward. Chances are like at 100% that you have everything that you need today to run FlexApp. And Jack, if you would walk them through our architecture and why they would have everything that they need without adding anything extra.
Sure. So what you're looking at here is actually the basics of our architecture. FlexApps come off of a file share. Most organizations already have a file share. So the communications of getting these applications into your environment are basically client on guest operating system. Client then reads configuration file, which is typically on a file share, which then loads the applications into Disk Manager, which are also on a file share. So architecturally, you're kind of ready out of the gate, unless you're one of those organizations that doesn't have a file share, in which case you can always use object-based storage and or a filer. All work for us, so UNC or S3 or Azure Blob Storage, whatever you want to do. We are compatible with all of that.
And briefly, if they're using something like the Citrix storefront to deliver applications, how do we hook into that? How would you see our apps, our Flex apps into that?
Yeah, there's a couple ways that you can get these applications into the environment. You can do it the traditional method of the applications layer into the operating system when the system is booted. Of course, you could do that with Citrix layering as well. But if you want something a little more dynamic where the applications aren't necessarily layered onto the server as part of the boot or as part of the image creation process, we have a thing called click to layer. And what you can do is you can, kind of like old school Citrix streaming, layer the application into the published application server dynamically. So you kind of put the stub to our executable, which is baked into the image, which then points to the or basically an XML, or actually it's an XML. On the file share, you hit go, it attaches the application on the fly to the guest operating system without even going through a reboot, republish, or recomposition of your image. So you can dynamically attach applications to your published application servers without even a maintenance window.
So the agent that gets installed to the endpoint, how would you get the agent for FlexApp? It's part of Profile Unity as well. How would that get installed usually in a Citrix environment?
Usually you will bake that into the image. That is probably the most consistent manner for that one. You just kind of run it off a network share and it installs into the image. Another method is you can run it off of group policy, but then you're at the limitations of what group policy is, and you're also at the limits of the compatibility and or consistency of GPO. So my recommendation is always bake the client tools into your images.
So you have packages out there for FlexApp, and those are on a VHD or VHDX, and those are stored on traditional Windows storage or object-based storage, as you said. And how do those apps know to ring true onto the desktop, and what makes that magic happen on the desktop itself?
What we have is called a filter management system, where you can utilize or create any filters using various different conditions, whether that be a group membership like you traditionally did it, or the client IP address that is coming into your Citrix environment is, or the machine name, or a date or an attribute or an environmental variable, or whatever it is that you decide, when these things are true, I want this application to layer into the guest operating system. So by using those contextual filters, you can then say, I want this here. Whereas with a traditional image build process, you are compiling the image that is your image. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's really good when it comes to, these are common applications that are presented to you. But again, with that limitation of not being able to get the last mile of applications, you now are kind of managing multiple images the way you always have in the past. Just you're kind of assembling them a little bit differently with the Citrix layering solutions. Now, using both technologies together, you can say, well, these are the common applications that this would be more or less a universal pool, compile image, deploy, and then all departmental applications, which tend to be anywhere between 5 to 10 different application sets, those can be assigned to your user's desktop, to your user's pool, to whatever, based on their needs. So now you don't necessarily maintain multiple different images and pools. You're maintaining one pool that is personalized to what the user or department needs.
So the user logs on, that's what we see at the far right-hand top, and they get the applications that they have because a context-aware filter rang true. Maybe they're in the accounting department or the HR department. So the apps only that they have access to are seen, whether it's Citrix apps or virtual apps or Citrix virtual apps or the desktop itself. Either way, they'll only get the apps that ring true for them because we have something called session isolation. And what's driving that is that part of our client system on the endpoint has a filter in it, a filter driver that will make the applications look like they're natively installed on that OS. And that's a pretty big difference too, because we're not isolating any parts of the apps, so we get a high degree of compatibility in applications and the types of applications that we can layer to an endpoint. But those VHDs stay dynamic and they can be attached to any OS. And why is that? Why can we support Windows 7 with an app usually as easy as we could support the latest version of Windows 10 without repackaging, Jack?
The main reason behind that is when we create these applications, we're not necessarily concerned with the kernel zero. And unfortunately with the Citrix layering solutions, the kernel zero it's a linchpin, because everything goes back to, this is the build of Windows 10, this is the build of the Windows operating system server that I ran. When I packaged up these applications, they are now in that version. They go back to that. Now, there's good and bad things to that, right? The good thing is that you can pretty much always guarantee that you're going to get 100% compatibility of that application layer because it was created off the operating system and delivered to the operating system that originated it. But the bad part is that when I move from a 2012 OS to a 2016 OS to a 2019, or the various different flavors that are Windows 10, now that kernel zero becomes the problem, because now I'm moving from an 1809 to a 2004 build of Windows, or I'm on an old 17 series and now I'm moving to 1809, whatever it happens to be. There is very little upgrade path to go from this is where I was to new. And the only way that I know of doing it is doing an in-place upgrade of the OS layer. Well, in-place upgrades are please roll the dice and hope it goes well. And again, that's not a knock at Citrix. It's just the reality of even just Windows updates themselves, is that an in-place upgrade could work. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you want to roll back. There is no rollback. Once you've done your in-place upgrade, you're done. And if history serves itself correctly, Microsoft isn't perfect. 1809 was a prime example of that one. They had to pull it and re-release it twice before they had a stable version of it. So being able to not really care about the base OS or compile the base OS, through Citrix layering, and then say, well, these are the applications I need, I don't care where they come from, makes things ideal. Also, if we want to take this even further, I can package an application on, say, a 2016 server for my published application environment, but have that same application work in a Windows 10 environment. So now I don't even have to worry about server OS versus desktop OS. I just have an app.
Yep. We'll recap our architecture. We have a management console, and that can be run on a Windows server, usually in your data center. Could be in the cloud as well. We have file shares to save the VHDs or VHDX on storage, and those can also be stored in the cloud. And then we have the endpoints, which is your Citrix machines, and that's where the agent resides. When the user logs on, the applications ring true for that user, and the configuration that you've put in place with Profile Unity and FlexApp rings true. And they have the apps that come in right at either boot time or assigned on a click to layer basis or at login time, 3 different ways, and we'll recap that in a moment. That's why you have everything you need to run Citrix with Liquidware FlexApp today. If you have any questions about the architecture, we'd be glad to entertain those. Just put those in the chat window.
There's a couple that have come through, actually, if I'm okay to just
Sure.
go into those. So one of them was around the concurrent connections. So for example, if you've got an application packaged, is there a limit on how many VDAs could have access to that, or how many people it could be published to?
No. I've never heard of a limit around how many connections are made. Also, you got to keep in mind that we're reading the disk. We're not doing read-write to the disk, right? So when the volume is attached, you are kind of reading the attached volume and then writing to a cache disk or a child disk off of the operating system. I've never really heard of a limit from Microsoft as to how many VHDXs can actually be attached from a file share out to multiple devices. Another concern that we tend to have is if I'm opening and closing and opening and closing, isn't that a lot of I/O going back and forth to the file server? And the answer is actually no. Once the application is double clicked on, a majority of the application is already cached into the guest operating system anyway, just by the nature of how VHD and VHDX works. But if you turn on our cache mode, it will then take the blocks, cache those locally, so that when you open and close the application, those blocks already exist on the C drive, and I'm not driving a bunch of network traffic to the servers, to the file servers. So there are ways to mitigate that.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. There's just one other question I think is really quite relevant for the moment, was around if you were to launch an application, would there be a delay as that application launched, for example? So if I was to log into a VDA and launch an application that was delivered in this way, is there an initial delay when that application loads, or is it like
there can be a little bit of a delay? Yeah, there can be a little bit of a delay on the applications themselves.
But I suppose with that caching you mentioned,
obviously the second one would be less of an issue, and we're going to be addressing some of those delays in later releases of our software. So we're going to have a thing called Precache, where during the capture process, you can open up the application and it says, okay, these are the blocks that I would like to pull down, so that when you double click on the application, those blocks have already been requested and pulled into the operating system ahead of time.
So we're talking about seconds. A lot of times the delay is not even noticed by the end user, even on the first launch. The only exception to that is click to layer, and that's when we're putting that stub icon on the desktop.
Correct.
Then you'll see, and you'll even see a meter down in the right-hand corner if your eyes are fast enough, that the application's coming across. And that's because VHDs, VHDXs, we're reading those block level. This is not a file by file method. It's extremely fast.
Correct.
Yeah, no, it sounds awesome. Just one other quick question, if that's okay. Are there any special considerations for integration with something like FSLogix?
For the profile itself, in the way that, so FSLogix has a couple of different technologies. And the short answer is we're compatible with all the FSLogix technologies. Is there overlap sometimes with a feature set in Profile Unity? Yes, there is.
Yeah.
But you can run FSLogix as a profile solution in addition to Profile Unity and FlexApp at any time. And there's big benefits to doing that. And I won't get too much into that, except to say FSLogix is really great, and so is our own profile disk, at making a large profile load extremely fast. And there's use cases in there for a separate, profile container for Outlook and things like that. We do that as well. And so if you're running that, your profile runs extremely fast. But the drawback to that is that profile is tied to an exact version of Windows, and it usually can't flow across when there are profile changes within the Windows infrastructure. So there's big frustrations. It can also become corrupt because it's the same as a local profile, except it's on the network. So ntuser.dat, that little file that becomes corrupt sometimes, can still become corrupt, even with our profile disk technology. But we have a profile technology that complements it greatly called portability. So it can run, what happens is FSLogix lays down once it's running after a couple of logins, FSLogix lays down the big profile really quick, and then our profile portability will lay down just a few delta changes. And those delta changes will keep profiles in sync from one place to the other, and it also helps you because we make an entire hive of that. If you ever have profile corruption, you can roll it back. We have a method to do an easy rollback with a help desk engineer. Just restore your profile and you log you back on and you're back up and running. Now it's like a built-in restore for FSLogix or for our profile disk or for a local profile or anything like that. And we can get very granular too. We can make things portable that go all the way down to system root and system file. There's other benefits too, and those are covered in some of our other webinars and videos. If you wish to see them, they're on our website.
Awesome, thank you.
So let's recap why you would choose FlexApp. Why, and this is specifically why our customers have chosen FlexApp for one or multiple reasons. The streamlined base image management, and we didn't directly talk about this, but this is the single biggest benefit of FlexApp in an environment. The old way of managing Citrix servers was in a large corporation. You might have a Citrix server farm for your accounting department. You'd have another one for the HR department, for the sales group, and so on and so on. And you would have multiple one of those to scale, right? And those would be unique. And you'd have to keep all of them updated, all of them patched, and so on, and all the applications. You rethink that scenario when you have true dynamic application layering like FlexApp. You can have the same generic base image that goes across all those departments I just mentioned, and maybe it just has Office also in it, Microsoft Office, because we could layer it, but there's a lot of nuances around it. So why not put it in a base image as part of your application strategy, and then allow FlexApp just in time to bring in those applications for the finance department, the HR department, so on and so on. So it really revolutionizes the way that you manage a Citrix server farm and Citrix desktops as well. Streamlining base image management, a huge reduction in hours that you could spend doing that because of modifying base images for applications. Obviously, with a non-persistent use case, we're bringing back applications very quickly. Lower the numbers of base images that you may have. You may still have multiple base images, but you can lower them. You can assign applications on those context-aware filters Jack talked about per department or even per time of day for compliance reasons or something like that. You can do one-off applications per user if you wish to an individual user. It simplifies the application packaging and updates. While there's the production environment going on, you use a separate little VM to package up an app. And when you deploy it, at the very next time there's a log off and log back on, the applications will be updated. So it's uninterrupted application updates and bringing down the environment for any updates. Avoid repackaging apps. So this is a big frustration, is not all application layering technologies will let you go cross OS. And so you have to start over anytime there's a major OS update. And that's not the case with FlexApp. If the application supports a move from Windows 7 to 10 or between 10 and 10 or server, then FlexApp supports that as well. So almost always, we encourage you to test, but almost always you don't have to repackage an app. And then we have one central management console where FlexApp and Profile Unity is delivering those context-aware settings and filters and also managing the profile. And you can do registry fix-ups too, not only for FlexApp, but any other type of application, merge, exclude, or replace a registry key, and with extreme power too, all the way to system drive, system root, and HK local machine, rather than just per user. Some of these things we've mentioned, they're worth putting on the screen, but I'll call out them a couple that we haven't. Obviously, we package fast. We package once, and those are big advantages. We also have cloud apps, so we have several pre-packaged cloud apps that you can get up and running with. A lot of those are open source, so you don't have to worry about licenses. Firefox, for example, and you can trial FlexApp very quickly without having those. We host those in cloud storage, like object-based storage, either on Azure or on Amazon. I don't think any of them currently with Google, but also compatible with Google. Native cloud storage options. So we also, as just cited, we have the object-based storage, so you don't even have to have file servers if you wish. You can use object-based storage. Applications are very quick because they're so fast to package. You can really package them up, and then once they're packaged, which is about the same time it takes you to install a package, there's no extra processes there other than provisioning quickly a VHD, which we do automatically. It happens in seconds. It's about the same time it takes to install an app. So you can deploy them in seconds. Simply have the user log off, log back on, or there's other ways to refresh their environment without logging off and log back on. And you can bring in applications very quickly. And you can even lay down multiple applications, hundreds of applications to click to layer, and you literally take almost no hit at login that way. And then the application's sitting there on demand if the user wants it, and they can click on that and it'll be layered into the environment. And those might be applications you think, well, you know, the user might use those once a month. So those would be great for click to layer. Session isolation, and that is Citrix environments. How you have, you don't want, even on the same Citrix server, you don't want one user to be able to see what the other user is has applications access to. So you have session isolation, as I mentioned this earlier. The same Citrix server, for example, users both on that box could see applications that are unique to them, and they wouldn't see the ones that are unique to the other user. Our micro isolation technology really makes packaging just easy, so easy. A lot of times in the industry, when you're doing application packaging, you have to think about dependencies for applications. Just a quick example of that might be, you know, do you, for the iTunes and Apple stuff, do you already have Bonjour installed because you've installed a related program or not? So you have to think about that. Did I package it first, or do I need to include it with this? You don't have to worry about any of that with our solution. And that's because we have micro isolation, and if there's shared DLLs, for example, and things like that, in the case of Adobe Creative Suite, you don't have to worry about that. We'll reach back and we'll grab if there is a conflict for a DLL, for example, we automatically and silently will reach back and grab an additional one from where it's stored on the network, and it will be in the environment. So there's not going to be conflicts based on DLL conflicts and others. To recap the times that we can bring an application in, there's 3 times, and this is unique in the industry. At system boot, it's going to be the fastest way to bring in your applications. They're going to immediately appear on the desktop, but also at user login, and this would happen right after the profile process has begun from either us or FSLogix or anyone else, and then the applications appear on the desktop very quickly. But then thirdly, there's the click to layer option, and that's a stub icon on the desktop, and only when you click on it would the application then be mounted. All of those can be done on a AD basis for the ones that are at boot time. If you want it very granular with a context-aware filter settings, you would do it at login time, and then the click to layer can be done on any of the context-aware as well. So when would you use FlexApp with Citrix app layering? And we've actually seen this, and it's because there's many customers that love Citrix app layering for their base image updates for the OS changes, and maybe a few apps that are in there. But to really dramatically lessen their base image management, they're looking for a more dynamic way to deliver apps, and that's where FlexApp answers the call. So oftentimes Citrix app layering might be a preferred way of managing those base images for Windows updates, for OS updates and apps in the base. Now FlexApp doesn't do OS layers at all. We're applications first, as we started out this webinar, when we do that on a dynamic or an elastic basis rather. You've been able to package those once and go across any type of Citrix desktops, as well as withstand OS changes, is a big advantage. So it is truly keeping the applications dynamic. The quick way of packaging up apps, another advantage of using us, in addition to Citrix app layering, if you're using that for at least some of your needs, and supporting multiple Windows environments. Maybe you're onboarding from a competing virtual desktop environment, and maybe you're already a customer of FlexApp. It's good to know that you don't have to scrap all the packaging that you've done, and no matter how easy it is, that your apps will just simply flow across, and they can go the other direction just as well. But we've these days have seen many people onboarding to Citrix desktops as COVID and work from home has increased the need to burst scale those types of environments. We mentioned session isolation earlier, and I won't revisit that, but that in a nutshell is why we've seen that. Jack, out in the wild, you actually experienced this. We had a customer that said, you know, this is what I would like to do. Can you recap that use case?
Yeah, the particular use case was rather
well
large.
just a second. While you're telling that, I just remembered we do have a poll, right, Stephanie?
We do. I'll launch that while he's
while he's talking about the use case. And go ahead, Jack. Sorry.
Okay. So a particular large retailer owned, funny enough, Unidesk, and then transitioned over into Citrix land and did Citrix layering. They first tried elastic layering and didn't really like the restrictions because they were kind of cross-platform with some of their guest operating systems. They had a little bit of 2012, a little bit of 16. They were starting to dip into 19 and needed something that would definitely reduce how many parent images they were maintaining, but at the same time, they loved the patch management components of the Citrix layering. They like to be able to put in Office in the image, however they like. They like the compile process. So what we determined was, well, you can do both. There's no reason why you can't use us for the remainder of the application differences that you might have. And they were doing published desktops, by the way, instead of published apps. So being able to do, here's your image that's been maintained by Citrix layering, composed image on a regular basis, and then here are the onesie twosie applications that you need on a per user basis, really was a nice marriage of ideas and delivery methods for those users. And they were able to take, that single application that they did, Chrome or whatever, and say, here's, pool 1 with 2012, and here's pool number 2 with 2016. And they had a little bit of VDI in that mix as well with some Zen Desktop. But being able to kind of pack once and deliver to multiple different types of workstations and or servers made it kind of a no-brainer for them.
That's great. That's great. And again, you don't have to use FlexApp with Citrix app layering. We just wanted to show you how it's not a direct competitor to Citrix app layering. Yes, use cases could be the same, but while they focus on layering anything, we focus on just the apps. Stephanie, any further information we didn't know about the poll?
Yeah, just share the results. You might not be able to see it because you're sharing your screen, but there was 0 on 0 OS patches and updates, 6% on individual app delivery, and then 15% on both OS patches and updates and app delivery, and then 79, that was the big winner, 79% on I do not currently use Citrix app layering.
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I helped Stephanie craft that question, but that is very interesting data that 79% of people aren't currently using Citrix app layering, but they are using, there's a significant and mentionable part there that are using it for, mostly for the ones that are for anything that they want to use it for. So that's good. It's good and shows that good for us, right? Because we have a lot of potential there, 79% not using it. We can maybe answer the need that might have been a little different for Citrix app layering, and that is dynamic application layering. That is quite a different approach. So I have mentioned this a few times, but FlexApp is an integrated part of Profile Unity, and the value is there. If you've not been used to a user environment management solution like Profile Unity, FlexApp greatly complements it. And let me tell you the history of this. So we go back to 2011, when Liquidware, we were thinking about getting and building this, or we actually had already built a prototype for FlexApp. And we wanted to either make it, obviously a standalone product, or should it be combined with Profile Unity. The more we looked at the use cases, the more we decided that really the advantage for the customers, for the prospects out there considering it, was that it would have the built-in capabilities of both. And why is that? It's because applications are inherently tied to the user environment through the ability to I touched on this earlier, manage registry keys, the ability to elevate user rights. We already did that with Profile Unity on a per user basis, on a per application basis, if you wish. The ability to drop off other types of application shortcuts, maybe to SaaS apps, the ability to have all those very deep context-aware settings in there already in Profile Unity. And I could go on, but some of the use cases are right there on the screen, because these are the user environment management, the core values of the user environment management is when you have Profile Unity in the mix and you do have a migration, there's zero downtime. We talked about the combination of profile management with other solutions in the market, like a profile disk, or even the profile disk solution that's offered up by Citrix would be compatible with the secure policy management, supporting work from home strategies with the ability to have desktops follow them, multi-cloud strategies, and obviously context aware. And why do customers choose Profile Unity usually? And that is because they need to migrate or coexist multiple types of desktops, maybe Citrix virtual apps, the Citrix Zen app, and Citrix desktops, Citrix Zen desktop. I still refuse sometimes to call it by the new product names, because we all know and love it by Citrix Zen app and desktop. But when you've got multiple ones, you end up with multiple profiles in different places, whereas Profile Unity, you end up with one profile that follows the user and stays in sync. Fast profile handling, detailed profile handling, disaster recovery. We talked about rollbacks, ongoing management of the user, and one management console that is has role-based access in it for enterprises. You want a guy that is in your admin group to just manage printers in a large hospital, you can give them access just to that one area, and we will document everything that he's done in case he goes on vacation the next week or whatever happens. So you have business continuity built into it, HA, and it is very much a very enterprise type solution. If you're using Citrix UPM and you want to upgrade to Profile Unity, very easy to do. We have a way of running in tandem with it, and then you would cut over to Profile Unity after the fact. And like I said, if you're already using something like FSLogix and you want these additional features for full user environment management, we'll pick right up where FSLogix leaves off with a fully compatible profile. Some people may already know who we are, and I want to tell you what's new and also mention some of the latest things in the market before Jack shows us a demo here shortly. Back in earlier this year, we launched 6.8.3, and then we had an update with R2, and some of that was bug fixes for the R2, but then there was some new features put in there too. We had further compatibility with FSLogix. We were already compatible, but without doing any workarounds or anything, it's all built in and seamless now with FSLogix profiles. The support of a Windows 10 multi-session was new at the very beginning of the year. The FlexApp speed improvements from the past and launching from the cloud when you're bringing down large applications sped up, security enhancements, and then we added VHDX support. You heard me mention VHDX earlier, and that's why, because we added that in R2. We also began to have functionality in there for MSIX. It's not mentioned in this first part, MSIX and AppV, to be able to convert those over to FlexApp. But later this year, as you see down here in 6.8.4, we will have that in the UI, being able to convert MSIXs and AppVs to FlexApps. And why would you want to do that? For those same context-aware filters that you have in there. And we can do two things. We can provision out an AppV with Profile Unity, or you can actually convert it over to a FlexApp. And maybe that's because you want it to load faster. If you want to leave it in AppV and have us provision it out, maybe that's because you still need the session isolation, the application isolation. And then we can do similar things for the new format, MSIX, with Profile Unity. Multi-session VHD is coming soon. To be clear, we support multi-session. The user signed into multi-sessions. We already and have supported that for a long time with our portability technology, but we'll do that with, and we have been able to do that obviously with the FS Logics in combination with us, but with our own profile disk, we'll have that capability as well. And that is planned for this later this quarter, those updates. Want to recap, where you are today and how we can make this easy for you. No matter where you are today, we can make managing your legacy environment easy as you cut it over, and that's because of our support of cloud-based storage. So capturing your user profiles with Profile Unity, your applications, your user data. We didn't spend a lot of time on that, but we manage user data and can sync it to a new location while the user's working and keep track of that UX baseline across any environment. And because we are more cloud compatible than any other vendor out there in our space, we can help stage that data, and then you're ready to pull it down. So if you're making a move, the big message of this slide is if you're making a move to cloud-based desktops, such as Citrix on Citrix Cloud powered by Azure, you would be in very good hands to start managing your user with our adaptive workspace management suite, because everything will start following the user from here forward. And it will be pulled back down either to on-prem or to the cloud and fully compatible. And the use of cloud storage and object-based storage, at least those options rather than file servers, cannot be understated, because when you reach a crisis mode like we all were in around the pandemic start in March, and you need to burst scale your environments, the cloud became just a perfect way to do that. And because of our reliance or compatibility rather with the clouds, it makes for a great partner in any project like that. At this point, I want to let Jack show you FlexApp and some of the features of FlexApp, including the UI, and how you manage it. Stephanie, could we give Jack sharing?
Yep, Jack, it's coming to you now.
While he's flipping that over, Jake, have you seen any other questions?
Yeah, I got a really good one here actually about how this product would handle something, for example, like Adobe, the Adobe suite. So for example, you might have a subset of users using the Pro version and a subset of another users using the sort of standard version. Is that something that can be done, sort of easily and quickly?
On a shared environment, that'd be a little more difficult to do. Okay. Because the likelihood is that the Pro version and the standard version are going to install into the same place, are going to have similar DLLs, might even have services that are reliant for licensing purposes.
Yeah.
When it comes to more of an isolated VDI type environment, then it's a lot easier, right? Then I can just say this person gets this version, this other person gets this other version. So it does make that a ton easier. Because these applications aren't isolated like an app B type environment where they're completely bubbled, that makes those types of things difficult.
So not in a Zen app environment, but maybe in a Zen desktop environment.
Correct.
Would be a better way to do it. Yep.
Does that mean then, for example, because they're all inside of effectively the same bubble, that one application that has like a dependency or calls something in another application, that would just work as you would expect as long as the user had access to both of those packages?
Yep, correct.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it makes it a lot simpler for things like drivers and services and stuff that typically the bubble sort of breaks. With layering, that is not an issue.
But that was, I think, one of the things sort of most talked about with App V, wasn't it? That the bubble was the per app bubble, really.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a quick application. Not doing like cooking show stuff. This is just a reference workstation. So I just booted it up and launched the packaging console here. And what we're doing is we're creating a VHDX on the network share dynamically and then hitting start. We are now in record mode. I can go ahead and run Notepad, and I'm doing that just because expedience of time. I've done very complex applications like the various different Autodesk applications, MathCAD, SolidWorks, Epic Hyperspace, Visual Studio. I got that question actually last time around. I had to say no. Now this time I can actually say yes, because we made some updates in our capture process to make that actually functional. So I'm not hitting finish. I'm just going to let the installer update run, do its whole thing until it's complete. Now in this case, it is done. The updates are finished, everything is good, and I can hit finish. And that was an application capture that quickly. Now I can take this a little bit further. I do have the ability to edit this application without necessarily going back into re-record mode. I can go and edit mode here and edit the package. And the nice part with this is that it actually shows you what was captured in the package. So if I need to prune any items out of the application, like say, oh, I caught some services I didn't mean to catch, that's fine. We can go ahead and delete those out. And oh, I forgot to add in a shortcut. I can go and add a shortcut into the desktop and target it to itself because it looks in the volume. Maybe add an argument if I need to. Good, okay, I've got a shortcut. Maybe add a reg key in if I needed to add a registry key in, or even see what was captured as part of the file systems so I know where that is. It's very easy to identify where things are if I have any overlaps or stuff within the file system and registry because I can see them all here, plain as day. So go ahead and hit save. That just merges that into the package. And now if I come over to the Profile Unity side or the management side, the application is automatically added into my inventory. So if I go by modified, there's my package right there. You can see it's on the file share. The size is 196 meg, real small. I can then create a filter based on any condition or combinations of conditions. For right now, we're just going to leave it empty. And then I'm going to go into my configuration, add another application into my mix here. I've got a few already. We'll drag and drop that in. I have cache blocks locally and enable click to layer. You know what, we'll do putty as a click to layer application here so you can see what that looks like. And then we will deploy. Now I just have a workstation here that's just been booted up. There's no applications in it, and I'm going to log on in to the environment. And as the user profiles load onto the environment, we're also in parallel loading the application layers into the guest operating system. So I may actually beat my apps to the desktop, which means for anybody who has a Citrix background, which I'm assuming is most people here, they'll kind of show up like receiver icons. You'll kind of see them pop into the desktop as the applications play back into the operating system. Now, playback of the application really isn't due to size of the application. Playback speeds usually have a lot to do with registry complexity and if the application has a driver. That can affect the playback speeds. So if it has to load the driver, that can take a little bit more time. But things like Google Chrome that has 15 registry keys and no drivers and just a service, it's going to be very quick to load into the operating system. So I've got my handful of applications that have loaded up in here. More are going to trickle in over time and then load in. So this is the nice part with timing. I might have some applications that I want to load up during login. I might have some applications that I'm like, everybody gets Adobe loaded at boot. I might have, like Putty, for example, I did that as a click to layer application. So I may not necessarily need to load up Putty during login. So if I click on Putty, oh, actually that was pretty quick.
If we do them on boot, they're already on the desktop. You don't see them trickle in.
That is correct. They're already there.
Yeah. And that would be if you want, quick load of that, but then you're restricted to only AD because Profile Unity hasn't run yet. So you're restricted to those groups, which quite often will suffice. Yep. Human resources, accounting, things like that. You can assign them by that. And then if you're doing them like you saw the applications come in, then you get the context aware filters and you can get much more granular about how they hit the desktop.
Another thing to note here, I'm going to go ahead and pull up a performance monitor and focus on network because that tends to be a common question we get. So load up VLC player and you can see kind of like no overhead really for the application. It's just, producing whatever network throughput it is. And let me turn off the network stuff that might be communicating. We'll turn off OneDrive so I can reduce my network and we'll get rid of, actually I don't have Teams in there. Okay, so we'll let this zero out. so that it doesn't have any more network flow going on. We'll close up the Citrix receiver. Come on, calm down. There we go. So guess got Windows is a little choppy, but let's do Adobe, for example. I haven't loaded Adobe yet, and Adobe's going to load up whatever receive blocks that it needs to pull down, or receive items it needs to pull down, and then I can just go ahead and and then close her up. Okay, and that receive should, you know, calm down. So the next time I go to launch it, nothing. So that's kind of what I was talking about, where if the application opens and closes and opens and closes, you can see it's pretty near instant on those second launches.
Because it's cached down to the endpoint.
Because it's cached down, and that is without cache mode on. That is the native function of how VHDs and VHDXs work, is they will cache a certain amount of blocks as just part of the attachment of the volumes, right? As kind of a buffer. So being able to have those applications in the guest operating system kind of pre-cached and ready to roll there. Ultra Edit's kind of new. I didn't load that already. Allows me to not blow up my file share because I'm opening and closing applications, just that first initial launch.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. That was basically application package to delivery in 2 minutes or so, give or take, with a little more explanation around it. And all of your settings and items and various things are saved as part of the profile. So whether that profile be, you know, FSLogix container, UPM, or native profile Unity, settings are settings. We just save them.
Nice.
All right, thank you.
Jake, do you see any other questions that may have come? I can tell you one we usually get a lot of times is like, can I use this on laptops? So remember, you know, that's truth in advertising, right? Because I said, you know, virtual, physical, or whatever. The answer to that is that if it's a laptop that's on the corporate network, that's when the applications are going to run and be attached. They need to be attached. When we cache apps down to the endpoint, we don't do it with the intent of taking those offline today. So today you need a well-connected machine. A desktop that's connected to the network would be a good case for FlexApp. Obviously, Citrix, always connected to the network, no matter where you're accessing that, is a good case for FlexApp.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. The only other question we've got is how the product's actually licensed. So what the options are around that, and how people can go about licensing it for their environment.
Yep, that's a great question, and the answer to that is, how do you want to license it? Because we have two scenarios. We can do it on a concurrent basis, or we can do it on a per user basis, and we can it's a perpetual license is the most common way that it's licensed. We can also do it on a subscription basis. So the perpetual license that historically has been the most common, but now we're moving to more of a subscription model to be in sync with cloud models as well, is that the perpetual license you pay one time up front, and then maintenance, and you should stay on maintenance, is 20% per year any year thereafter. And subscription will fall in line with those same types of things divided by 12 with maintenance included. So that'll give you an idea, but significantly less than even the who you would think we compete against on the user environment management variable there. And there's not many players left out there because they got bought or absorbed. But we're significantly less when you even have the power of both Profile Unity and FlexApp in one solution with us.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Making sure I got my screen shared right. And Stephanie, how would we like to close out? Tell them about Liquidware and where they need more information, or?
Yeah, you can do that. And then I just have one last slide because I know some people opted in for a prize. So you can cover this and then I'll take the screen back.
And I'd like to tell everyone thank you for participating in that poll today. That was great. And sometimes it's fun to learn that sort of thing. For more information, obviously the contact information is right here. You can contact me personally at any time at jason.smith@liquidware.com, And if you just change Jason to Jack, of course you would get Jack in that case. And so that's the format of our emails. If you reach someone more generic, then you see the sales alias there, or an info one, that'll work too. If you want to download and play with Profile Unity FlexApp, you could be doing that, I promise, within the next few minutes. You would have it downloaded. And so there's a simple form on our website to do that. And within about an hour to an hour and a half, you can be packaging apps. Within an hour, if you captured, and listen to what we're talking about in your proof of concept environment, you could even be trying our cloud apps that are out there and already prepackaged. So keep that in mind. And then that demo, I believe, time frame is good for 15 days. If you need something longer than that, reach out to us at that sales alias, and we'll be glad to extend the license key. We would be glad to see you running it in your Citrix environment and alongside your current profile solutions, and we can talk to you about your specific needs and customize things specifically for you with the talent of people like Jack Smith. I'd like to thank Stephanie and Jake and all the people at CUGC for allowing us to sponsor today's webinar. And I just love seeing, sometimes you see numbers fall off in a webinar and they continue to go up. So people must have been interested, Stephanie.
Obviously, yeah, and lots of great questions today too. Let me just grab the screen really quickly. Sorry, take a minute. I'll show this one. All right, last slide of the day, or the last slide I have for you for the day. I know some of you may have opted in for a chance to win an Amazon Echo show. So that winner will be announced on Twitter. So be sure to follow us on Twitter at myCUGC. I want to pull the full attendee report because some people register after we get started. So I want to be fair to everybody. Pull the report, do the Google randomizer, and we'll draw a winner after the webinar, and we'll announce that winner on Twitter. So keep your eyes peeled. And also just another reminder to come visit us at mycugc.org. Check out our discussion forums where you can ask questions and answer questions, see what's going on with your local group. If you haven't joined your local group, do it. We have them all over the world. So if there's not one in your neck of the woods, then maybe you want to start one. That's always possible. So go and see what's going on out there, and check out our blogs. We've got lots of great blog posts out there for you. So come visit us online. And with that, I'm going to give you all back your day. I hope you've all enjoyed yourselves and learned something new. Thank you, Jason and Jack and Jake. Thank you for being on with us today. Lots of J names today. I had to had to say them very carefully. But thanks for being here today. And thanks Liquidware, because Liquidware has been a sponsor of CUGC from the beginning. You guys
We're so
have been
happy
with
to
us
do
the
it.
whole
You've been a
way.
great partner. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone. I hope you all stay happy, healthy, and safe. And we will see you all at another CUGC event here soon, hopefully at Southeast XL next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.